Yeah, could I let's save my life when I'm down? Will she take a bullet for me if they rise with the pound? What if my pants sag too low? Television manipulation, lead elimination by murder from giving kudos. Dreams left broken, that structure I never learned. No guidance in front or behind me, but I'm left to discern what's godly.
All right. What's going on, y'all? It's What Can Make It Better. It's your boy Design.
So, Ultimate Monroe, Goldfinger Visions.
All right, and we got our special guest Jay Nolan here with us.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Let's get it.
This episode is going to be called Independent Curators, because this is about our artists, our independent artists, our people that's just started making music, people that want to learn the game, and people that want to know how to be their own label, know how to create their own system. This is for y'all. This is for the music lovers, and this is for the people that just love information. So, with that said, I want to shout out to all the sponsors. I'm not going to shout out all the sponsors right now because it's way too many sponsors. So I will be putting the sponsors up on the screen. Shout out to the sponsors. Much love to y'all. I'm going to let Jay Nolan introduce himself before we get into these questions.
Let's go.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, my name is Jay Nolan, man. I'm a hip-hop artist. Music entrepreneur is what I typically introduce myself as now, because that's really what it's all about. But I started doing music when I was like 8 years old. My older brother kind of put me on. He was already doing it. And I just followed in his footsteps, really. I took it seriously probably about 12, 13, going into high school. You know, I kind of like got real obsessed with like the East Coast hip hop, to where I was like listening to like the Dipset, the 50 G Unit, Locks, D Block. You know, so I was like listening to that, but I was also listening to like the Outkast and all of the stuff that was coming from Atlanta as well, T.I. So I kind of like mixed all of that into a pot and just started going. And being that at that time, because I'm talking about like 03, 04, when I really was taking it serious, started taking it serious, you know, battles was still like a thing too. So we looking at like the Smack DVDs, and so we out here in Atlanta battling too, you know. So that's kind of like how I got my start. And from there I just kind of just kept going, man, and got introduced to this whole online thing, releasing music digitally and stuff like that. So I just been soaking up game ever since, and just trying to like navigate it on my own, because I've had to, you know what I mean? I never really had like a real manager. Like I had moments where I had people that kind of wanted to work with me, but it never ever seemed to like work out. Right. Like visions wasn't always aligned. So I always ended up back doing my own thing. And I think that was probably the best thing for me anyway, was just to like learn how to rough it on my own and pick up game for myself. Because when somebody else is handing it to you or trying to hand it to you, or that's what you expect, you easily get disappointed. You know what I mean? When things don't go according to like what you think it's supposed to be. But when you really got to do it yourself, it's like you either gonna swim or you gonna drown. And that's how I had to get it.
Well, I feel like a person of your caliber, or a creative of your caliber, I'll say, with management, I just feel like it's kind of just gonna be like the manager is gonna tell you something and you're gonna be like, no, if we do this with Spotify this way, it's going to be better. We're going to maximize the monetization. We're going to, like, I feel like you with a manager will frustrate you more and more. Like, yo,
yeah, that's kind of how it was.
My manager how to manage me. Like, you don't need a manager.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, man. Like the where we kind of bumped heads, because I had hired a manager back in 2020, and what you said is exactly right. Like, because when he was talking about like, let's invest in like playlists, and I'm like, invest what? You trying to pay these? I'm not finna do that. Like, I've already got I can build an audience. All I got to do is continue to do what I've been doing. I've seen what I'm doing is working. Why would I go out here and just start giving money? You know what I mean? For nothing. And I know it's fake. You know what I mean? But he was like, nah, but you could get like the perception going, and then you could like fill in the blanks when people start paying attention. Like, he was kind of looking at it from that standpoint of like, fake it till you make it.
You're trying to play the game.
Yeah, he's trying to play the game, but I'm like, dog, I'm an organic type dude. Like, I always build from the ground up. I don't want no fake love or no vanity metrics that look good, but then it's like, because you always gonna get called on that at some point. Like, if you got 2 million plays and then you do a show and you got 30 people in the room, it's not adding up.
That's
So
really-
somebody gonna call you out. So I was like, man, that's not the game I'm trying to play. And we always kind of bumped heads on certain things, like logistic things like that. And then, you know, you also gotta manage your manager's personality, because sometimes, you know, he was kind of like trying to pull the Dame Dash card, you know what I'm saying, on some people, but he was doing it in a slick way where you might not always see that was what he was on, but it'll kind of make certain people distance themselves from you and you don't know why, you know what I mean? So it's like, dang, ain't hitting my line no more, like what's going on?
That's tough.
You turn around and find out one day, it's like, oh yeah, you know, as long as you was working with homeboy, I wasn't rocking with you. It's like, oh wow, I ain't even know that.
You know what? I got one thing to say quickly, and I'm gonna let Royalty say. I know you might want to say something, but the communication factor that we got going on out here is just it's weak, man. It's so weak, because what would make somebody not want to talk to you about your management? Not from a negative perspective, but just from a communicative perspective. Like, yo, yeah,
Right.
your management is doing this for you and doing that for you. Yo, what about this and what about that? You need to know about these different areas where things are not going particularly your way from the outside looking in. You know, I need to give you a warning, because you might spend years of your time. We let people spend years of our time in personal lives and in our music lives with the wrong people, knowing that they're the wrong person, and then they ruin their career, or they mess up their career, or they make a sound they don't want to make, or they perform places, like you said, they paying to perform or something, or they doing something they don't need to be doing with a playlist. Meanwhile, they could have just told them. Royalty, before we get into these questions, you have anything you want to say?
Yeah. What's your advice for, as far as like with independent artists? What's your advice as far as like networking and dealing with egos?
Personally, man, leave that ego at the door. Like, that's the first thing I would say, because if you're trying to network with people, the last thing they want to deal with is somebody who has like an overinflated view of themselves, you know what I mean? Because that could easily take you out the conversation, because the next person that's a little bit more humble, or somebody that's a little bit more coachable, more personable, they'll go with that other person because it makes them more comfortable, you know what I mean? So but also what I had to learn was rapping ain't enough, you know what I'm saying? Because when I walk in a room and I introduce people to myself as a rapper, it's like, all right,
Cool.
what value do you bring to the room?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, you're a talent. But when it comes time to like have a powwow or a meeting and we all discussing like what value we could bring to a situation, all you know how to do is rap. Like, basically all we can do is help you, but you can't help us.
Right.
So that also like plays a big part. Is like finding where you can like actually be of assistance and be more of an asset to a situation outside of just being in the studio. So find a way, because I think the more resourceful you are for somebody else, they'll circle back to you on your music anyway.
Right. I agree with that.
You gonna do features, you gonna network. Yeah, man, you gotta use what you got. Whether some artists got studios and they let people come in their studio. Some artists know a whole bunch of producers and they got a network in mind. Some artists got money. Some artists just performed all over the place so they know where to go, and they got a couple clubs that'll let them get a couple hours for free. Whatever you got, use your source.
Yep.
Take it to infinity. So I love that though, because that's it's setting the tone a little more out here, because sometimes people just think, oh, I could just make music. I don't need to have any skills. I could just be the act. And it's not like that nowadays, because it's very competitive now, because there's a lot of artists now.
Exactly.
So, all right, so we're gonna get into this question right here. And the question is, well, it's half question. So tell us about your journey as a professional artist and what drove you to become an artist that created his own lane.
Oh man, my journey, like I said, it started way back. I was 12, 13 when I decided that this is exactly what I wanted to do. So at that time, I'm battling, I'm freestyling, I formed my little crew, you know. But then as we got to like senior years, you know, getting crunch time on, all right, what's next? You going to college? Like, what you gonna do? And I didn't want to do none of that. I wasn't trying to go in no school. I wasn't thinking right because I could have used that, but I didn't. So, so we just started hitting the town, you know what I mean, with the mixtapes and going to the radio stations, trying to get in where we fit in. So I ended up meeting like DJ Drama and Don Cannon early, like 18, 19, took him mixtapes, and Drama wasn't trying to hear me, but Cannon gave me a shot. So, you know, he called me like the next day after I gave him the first tape or whatever. He's like, bro, come back next week, bring me some more. You got some more? I'm like, man, I got about 5 mixtapes right now. And he like, bring them all. Like, so we ended up falling out of contact with him, but that was kind of like setting the tone for me to like get out here, start meeting people that's in the industry, blah, blah, blah. So circle back a couple years later, I was supposed to actually do a deal with Don Cannon, and you know, that kind of fell through because he had a different business partner at the time, and me and his business partner didn't really see eye to eye on some things, and he was kind of going crazy. But little did I know, his father had like kind of passed away or whatever during that same time period, so he was just lashing out. And I just kind of like ended up being on the receiving end of whatever he had going on personally. So when that didn't go the way that I wanted to, I created this project called Broken Dreams, and I went and did it myself. I actually, my cousin who was out here in Atlanta, he had moved out to Colorado and got married. So he was like, bro, I want you to come out to my crib in Colorado. We could record your project and just come out here. So I recorded the whole project out there in Colorado, came back to Atlanta, and then I put it out. And that was kind of like the beginning of everything for me, because like when I put that project out, this is like 2010, you know, so this is like blog era. So I was able to kind of jumpstart getting a following online from all these different blogs that was posting my project, and I had international blogs that was like posting me. So I started getting a taste of, oh wow, I got actual people listening. I think that project probably had like 12,000 downloads online, you know what I mean? So it was like, oh, this is a real thing. I could really do this. Like I just went from posting tracks on MySpace to I got 12,000 people listening to me. I could make something out of this. So but from there, it didn't really go nowhere because I didn't know how to capitalize on it. I didn't have no other assistance. So it was kind of like just keep dropping projects. And then that became like a stagnant thing. And 2012, 2013, I actually got my first TV placement, you know. So then I got this track placed on a show called UFC Road to the Octagon. So before the fighters actually do their match, they do the whole background and why the fight is important to them. And my track was like the backdrop for this Hispanic fighter. His brother had died at the time, so he was like having this whole emotional, you know, backdrop to his fight. And I'm like, oh snap, that's dope. And then I got to like see how getting your music and TV and film kind of pays, and I'm like, oh, this is a lot better than what I've been doing, because them downloads was free, you know what I'm saying? Like, so that opened my eyes. I still didn't really understand how it works because somebody had kind of like this guy named Joseph Parker, he had reached out to me because he had heard my projects and stuff like that. He was like, yo, you a dope artist. I got a lane over here with this producer who, you know, dude was making a living off of TV and film, but they just kind of brought me in to lay down vocals on a couple tracks, and I kind of like let them have the tracks to see what they could do with it. Right. So we ended up getting placed, and it still didn't click to me at the time, like, oh, this is something I should really be doing. I just kind of like was on autopilot with it. So it's like they send me the beat, I do the rap, you know, whatever. They was going out and finding the placements, and then I was just kind of eating off the back end of it. But
good experience.
Yeah, it was great experience, you know, just to have people in my corner. But at the same time, the fact that I wasn't like hands-on with the process other than coming up with the raps, like I think for a minute I was just content with getting my little paycheck off of it. Okay. But I was still working, you know what I mean? It's not like I could make a living off of it. So it wasn't until 2018 when I dove into like, let me learn the business. Like, let me learn everything that I possibly can about the music business, like so I can equip myself for something better, because I don't want to keep juggling my job, you know, At one point, I'm working 2 jobs, trying to rap on the side. You know what I mean? It became music was just like almost becoming a hobby at one point. And I'm like, damn, I've been doing it too long for it to fade out. So learning the business was like the biggest thing for me, because it's like, okay, I started reading, learning about the masters, learning about the publishing, learning, because I'm getting publishing money, but I don't even know what publishing is. You know what I'm saying? Like that don't make no sense.
The average artist is not into ASCAP and getting the percentile correct and all that. Man, yo, let the engineer do that. Let the manager do that, man. I'm trying to make this rap.
So a lot of people that come to me, they'll have an ASCAP or a BMI, but they won't have none of their tracks registered, you know? So it's like you're defeating the purpose of even having it. But I had to learn like why that was happening. Like, okay, yeah, I'm getting a check, but why am I getting a check? How am I getting a check? Where is it coming from? You know, how do these people pay out? Because I had my first couple placements, I'm like, yo, the track's already on TV. Like, why we ain't been paid yet? You know? And I'm asking questions and kind of being a little aggressive a little bit with homeboy, like, where my money at, bro? Like, it's already out. What they doing? And they schooling me to what net 90 is and all of this type of stuff. Like, nah, within the next 90 days, they gotta pay us, and this is the way that it goes. Then we're gonna get paid on royalties. You know, it's gonna take like 6 months. You know what I mean? So they started giving me little clues on how stuff worked. So then I started like, all right, if that's what they told me, let me go confirm that that's true. So I started researching online and whatnot, and I'm like, okay, they're not lying. Okay. So I just ended up having so many different situations like that, man. One company that I worked with, man, homeboy pulled off a crazy lick. Like, he had started his own little sync company where he was getting artists, producers, writers, and everybody to create these tracks. He was a producer at first. He had stopped producing, and he was just hiring people to come up with these tracks, you know. And we were getting like little upfront payments, like $200, $150, and it was like basically like studio fees. Like, if you gotta go to the studio, you can pay for the studio time with that. If you don't gotta hit the studio, you pocket it, you know, and then you get paid in royalties. But then he sold the company. So all the music that I did for him ended up being owned by Universal. You know what I'm saying? So then it's like, all right. Then I started seeing Universal placing the music, but I didn't understand how that worked. You know what I mean? And there was nobody to really like break it down to me. He just happened to give me a heads up, like, hey, bro, I sold the company, so, you know, I'm not gonna be hitting you up to do this no more. But then I started, being that I was already in my BMI all the time, I'm starting to see my tracks pop up.
Different places. Yeah,
different places, or a new version of my old track. I'm like, that was registered on what date? That was like a week ago.
Right.
Like, who got my, you know? So then I start looking around and I'm like, oh wow, he pulled off a cold move because he sold the company. I'm sure he got a nice little bag just to give up that catalog. Just the same way these big artists are selling their catalogs right now. Right. So, you know, so my journey just been crazy, bro. Just like trial and error, just not being afraid to try, but also doing the checks and balances to make sure, like, okay, if I'm getting myself into this, let me make sure what telling me is correct. I don't want to just be misled and following along, and then I look up and I'm not really reaping no benefits from it.
Yeah. I feel like you're very attentive. You know what I mean? I feel like you don't have the mindset from the beginning. It sounds like when you were young, you didn't have the mindset of the average artist, because you're looking at yourself like, oh, I gotta go to school. I gotta go to do 2 jobs. Wait a minute, I don't have enough time to really be an artist for real. People don't even think like that. I don't have enough time to be a musical artist that can be taken seriously, because I don't have enough time to put into it. So that's just that off the back already shows like your mindset was already ahead of yourself, man.
Yeah. Have you always been like, you know, like this aware and like this observant? Because I feel like you kind of like soak up game like really well.
Yeah, I would say so. That's always been my strong point, I think, because like when I was younger, like in elementary, middle school, even part of high school, I was kind of like timid. You know what I mean? So, but when I didn't speak, I was always paying attention to my surroundings. You know what I'm saying? I was always like able to pick up like certain people had strong points, and I would sometimes encourage my homies like, yo, you should do that. You should lean into this. Maybe you should try it like this. You know, so I've always been a person that just paid attention to what's going on around me and try to figure out if there's something around that I don't like how can I figure shit out? How can I make this more favorable to what I want? And, you know, I think my parents also kind of fostered an environment where I was able to do that as well, because they didn't try to change who I was.
Right.
You know, like when I didn't want to go off to college, they didn't force me. They didn't kick me out the crib or nothing like that. They just like, hey, at a certain point, we're gonna have to put the hammer down on you, bro. But we support you forever.
Right.
So I think that also had a lot to do with it as well.
Okay. Solid.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, Royalty, you could ask this next question.
I was just about to get into that. All right. So, what advice do you have for artists that would like to stay independent but still have access to major artists?
Access to major artists, like for features and stuff like that.
Yeah, like still be able to work with major artists, receive major features.
Independent artist that wants to be able to be commercial still, like they still want to have all the radio play. They still want to be able to do features with Jeezy, like they want to be able to be out here, but they don't want no label.
That's tough. Yeah, you gotta get some bread, man. Like that's the only other. Like you're either gonna have to get some bread, or you're gonna have to, like I was saying earlier, like bring value to their situation.
Yeah.
Like, and sometimes bringing value might devalue you for a certain time period. Like, so it's kind of like I said before about the ego thing, because if you ain't got no bread to pay Jeezy for a feature, you might be the do boy in the studio for a year or two. You know what I'm saying? You might have to intern up at the spot and just be around and let them get familiar with your face. You know what I'm saying? To where it's like, okay, he's always around, and somebody just randomly one day asks, like, bro, what do you do? I know this ain't your life.
Right.
And you're like, oh, nah, this is what I do XYZ, but I work up here just because, okay, cool. Let this nigga studio. You can't rap today, but you can sit in. You know, you're going to have to invest something into yourself, though. You're not going to get it for free. But even while you're doing that, you still need to get you some bread, because it's no guarantee gonna just give you free anything, even if they do allow you access, right? So for independent artists, I would say that's one way to get you at least in the door, get your foot in the door. But on top of that, I always say just learn the business, bro, because like when you release a song on DistroKid or whatever little distributor you're using, like you got to know what the next step is. You got to know how to market yourself. You got to be thinking about branding. You got to be thinking about, especially if you don't got the money to pay people to do these things for you, which I've never invested no money into no promotion to a person. Like I've bought ads, all type of stuff. You know what I mean? I've invested into myself, but I've never just paid nobody to do the job for me. So I've always been hands-on with everything, and depended on like, damn, okay, my video's not going viral. How do I create something that's more engaging to make share it? Because I'm not finna pay nobody for this. Like, I want you to want to tell somebody about my music.
Right.
So, but you gotta have that. You gotta have that hunger. You gotta really like, if you try something and it's not working, you gotta be willing to evaluate yourself too. Like, what am I not doing right? You can't be stubborn. Like, nah, I'm gonna keep trying my way until it works. You know, because that's what a lot of people do. Like, especially me, I'm in my 30s. When I look at like my contemporaries, people that's my age still doing music, you know, some of them are calling me for consultations now. And I'm like, bro, how you using social media? And it's like, oh, you know, I don't really like it. And I'm like, I get it. We the same age. We from the same era. I wasn't really jacking social media neither, because I ain't like holding the camera in my face. You know, it felt like I was going to do some duck lips or something. But it's like, are you serious about what you're doing though? Like, cause you're creating a barrier, you're creating limitations on something you claim you want. So now I had to figure it out. Oh, okay, if I'm not gonna hold the camera, let me get a tripod, let me buy some lights, let me figure out how to create content, because I see it. I ain't gonna be shaking ass on TikTok or nothing like that. So how do I get people to pay attention? So I started creating content, whether that was rapping, whether that was giving out information like I have been. Like you could always find your own niche.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
how important? Yeah, facts. How important is marketing, and where should an independent artist place their music? Like, where are some solid, trusted blogs or websites where an artist can place their music for promotion?
Man, the blog game, in my opinion, is dead. But what I did was started using, like I said, I was getting into sync placement, so I used that as my calling card, because now I'm getting paid to have my music in front of people. You know what I'm saying? So when I started getting with these sync companies and started getting songs in TV shows, and I got my song on Love and Hip Hop, Black Ink Crew. I got my song on. I just had my song in The Best Man, the new show that they put out on Peacock. You know what I'm saying? And you're getting paid. You're getting paid, but your music is being played with hundreds of thousands of viewers or millions of viewers, depending on how big the show is. So now, when I reach out to a independent curator, somebody that's putting together a show or whatever, I could reach out to them with some credentials.
Right.
Like, you know, it's not like I'm on set with these people, but it's like my music been on 130 shows. Somebody gonna be like, oh damn, no other artists that I'm booking got that, so let me put you on the lineup.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So that just kind of created a snowball effect. And then, you know, I started just like figuring out other ways. Like, I got to a point where I didn't like doing competitions or them contests and stuff. But then I seen Loaded Lux had a contest, you know,
Yeah,
looking for
I think
artists.
I was gonna ask you about that because I was literally watching it before we started the interview.
Dope. Yeah. So I seen he was doing the contest. I'm like, oh shit, Loaded Lux. Yeah, like I told you, I was watching Smack DVD from the jump. So I knew everything that was going on. So I'm like, oh nah, I got to get on there. So when he said tag me in your best video, I tagged him on like 40 videos of me spitting. You know what I'm saying? He eventually reached out to me and was like, hey, I got this thing with Hot 97. I need you here. When it did that, that added even more validity to my name. So you got to just find ways to keep your face out there, stay active. Like, I know I used to have an issue with stop and go progress. You know what I'm saying? Like I would have a solid 3 months where I'm going hard, and then I have a solid 6-7 months where it's like, I ain't really on that right now. But you don't know that it's out of sight, out of mind. If you're not constantly in people's face, they're gonna forget about you. They're not gonna just come looking for you. It's very rare. Somebody gotta have love for you to come looking for you.
Right.
So
that's the thing about the entertainment. Is you really gotta sell yourself. You know what I mean? And when you sell yourself, you always gotta be there. You always gotta be available. You always gotta. It's like your inventory.
Yeah.
You gotta keep giving out.
The new thing for me, if I had to tell an artist how to get out there right now, it's like check out these platforms. Like I think out of New York right now, it's a platform called The Purple Room or something like that. You know what I'm saying? It's this chick, she's put it together, where it's almost like the what's that joint up there, On the Radar or something like that, with the green text on it, where they let you come in and rap on the camera, on the mic. Find as many platforms like that as possible where they willing to let you come rock the mic on their platform. They paying for the camera time and all of that. So all you got to do is come in and do your thing. And if you got a good enough record, they put it on their platform, it's gonna go. But you gotta have it already together. Like all they gonna do is set the platform up for you. They can't make it work for you.
Right.
Solid.
Yeah, man.
And then on top of that, just another thing, you get on one of these platforms, right? Be willing to promote. Many artists go on these different things. They'll get the opportunity, but they expect the curator or whoever put it together to do all the legwork. I started building an email newsletter. So if I got something notable going out, you know, being that I had people buy my ebooks and stuff like that, I may have 500 people on my email list. I'm gonna send it to them, to where it's like I got 500 people that I need to be reaching out to. I can't slack off.
Absolutely. Positive.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing. That's how you got to do it. It's a critical breakdown you got going on that a lot of artists do not do. We don't do the critical breakdowns.
Yep.
It's like to just be lollygagging and just think, oh, everything's just going to come to me. I'm going to get opportunity.
Yeah, you just got to be proactive. Yeah.
Right, bringing these papers to me. All right, cool. So we're gonna jump into this next question. Actually, this is actually the last question I have for you. Actually.
Okay.
Because you answered them pretty like or you're pretty targeted.
Gotcha.
You know, you have a lengthy story, but you're pretty targeted. So, if you had the opportunity or position to help make the industry, like I said earlier, make higher frequency music, and you could do that, what would you personally do to create that?
To create higher frequency
create,
music?
Yeah, to help the industry. You see how the industry's making all this music?
Yeah.
Now the industry's making higher frequency music. How would you help generate that?
Oh man, that's a that's a deep question. Cause like in order to even get to higher frequency music, people gotta vibrate on a higher frequency personally. You know what I mean? Because like let's think about it. How many people, I'm sure you see people all the time that got like a more conscious style of music, but then when they give it to somebody, they're not as receptive to it. Like as people, we gotta develop and evolve first to even accept that. You know what I mean? Like it's only because I feel like we only give certain people the leeway to be that. You know what I mean? Like the J Electronica get to exist in his own realm, but for every J Electronica, we got 30 young Dolphs or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or you know, we got like the dude 19 Keys who's on the conscious wave. You know what I'm saying? But for every 19 Keys, we got a DJ Academics. You feel me? So it's like the balance ain't there. So for me, it's just you to be honest, if I had to just put myself in a position to do that, all you gotta do is go make the music. You know what I'm saying? Like, cause you gotta be the reflection of what it is that you want to see, but you gotta stand on your ideals. You gotta be like a stand-up person. You can't just rap about higher frequency and your lifestyle is low. So it's like, I don't even believe what bro talking about. I seen him. So all of that ties into each other.
It makes sense now.
Luckily.
So yeah, man. I mean, that is true though. That is true. It can't just be all the music. It is actually our lifestyles that we have to live a certain lifestyle and experience certain experiences and grow with it, and then it be genuine, not just trying to just make music. So yeah, that's the last question right there. I want to take a note though. We're gonna do a reaction to some of your music too. We also do music reactions too. And we want to show you some appreciation. You know what I'm saying? And we do actually like your music, so why not actually sit and critique it and hit and re-listen? Because earlier when you said like you was listening to Down South and you was listening to New York styles and you combine them, it actually makes sense to me now. Like now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, nah, he does. That's why I thought he was from New York, but then it's like I was surprised when I seen like you was like I saw a GA on top of one of your posts. I'm like, okay, so he out there with it. Royalty, you got anything you want to say? Time is
How do you? I don't want to use the word motivated. So how do you stay consistent?
Oh man, I just learned that I had to be. Honestly,
you just have to go. Just
gotta be like, cause I think what helped me the most was like being forced to create in my own space, in my own crib. I had to create a schedule for myself. Like, how can I, if I'm not posting something valuable every day, how can I get that to at least 3-4 days a week? I get to 3-4 days a week. How can I do that 5? You know what I'm saying? Just constantly challenging myself, not allowing myself to get comfortable. I think that's the main thing, because you can't be comfortable when you're not on yet. But I think a lot of people reach a certain level. They got their homies, they got the little chicks that's local that deal with them, so they start feeling like they did something. And that's the easiest way to set yourself up for failure.
Right.
Positive advice. We should definitely do a part 2 to this. Definitely. We're definitely about to run out of time, so I don't want it to just cut off. So, Design.
Yeah, shout out to all the sponsors. We appreciate you for coming through. And this is What Can Make It Better, Independent Curators. I think we got to it, man.